There's always the question hanging when you have in blends, white or red, too many cultivars, and you wonder, is the wine an expression of the terroir, or is the wine just reflecting the different cultivars? Some people will tell you that a terroir is best expressed through a single cultivar that's supposed to act like a sponge, and the winemaker has very little to do into the blending to make something. However, the freshness of Sijnn Red 2018, which is a blend of Syrah, for more than half of it, Trincadeira, which is the Portuguese cultivar, Cabernet Sauvignon, Mauve Red, which is as well known as Mataro, and 7% of Touriga Nacional. Portuguese grapes, Bordeaux grapes, Rhone grapes, all that in the terroir of Malgas, made by a super team, very inspired. What do you have in your glass for this Sijnn Red 2018 Malgas wine of origin, Kathy?
Probably one of the most complicated wines that you've put on the table, and I'm not going to answer the question, is a single variety expressing terroir better than a blend, because that would take far too long. So this is incredibly intense, this wine from Sijnn. They have a deep, deep, deep color, which is ruby shot through with black. It's got a really concentrated nose and a concentrated palate. And when I say concentrated palate, it's not heavy, it's not alcoholic, it's just great fruit concentration. So let's go back to the nose a bit. It's really very, very herby for me. There's some element of green herbs or a leafiness, but not much. What I'm getting more is crushed herbs like marjoram when they've been dried, oregano when it's been dried, and then mixed up to make almost a potpourri of dried herbs. And I think you could possibly be getting that from the Syrah, but also the Trincadeira and the Cabernet Sauvignon is contributing to this wonderful leafiness. And then the thing that led me to say potpourri is something that I usually get from Touriga. I always get, some people who make potpourri, they don't make it to be too sweet and full of pretty flowers and roses. They make it to include dried oranges and dried naartjies and cloves. And so I always tend to get that dried orange zest from Touriga Nacional, and I'm picking up dried orange zest on this. And then to go, the herbs the fruit on the nose is a mix of black, blue and red. It's just a melange of fruit. And the palate too it's a melange of fruit with this real top layer of crushed herbs, crushed dried herbs, scrub, etc. And then a lovely acidity, but it's not an overpowering acidity. So you've got a wine that is fresh, a wine is intense, but a wine that doesn't drag you down. It lifts you up. Intense
is the word here, but from the color itself, it's opaque. You cannot read one letter even when you're just on the edge of it. It's really a dark wine. I mean, not dark in color, but intensely opaque, and you can see a lot of extraction has been on that wine. One of the contrasts I found is you have all these delicious sweet fruits on the nose, and the palate is bone dried and textured. And I even find a bit of this drying out white pepper, which is combining, probably coming from the Syrah then, but as well combining with all this herby. And I agree, when herb, it doesn't mean green vegetal, it's more the dried, complex herb de Provence, dried fynbos. It's, yes, both Cabernet Sauvignon, if properly ripe, can deliver that, but as well the Mourvedre and the Trincadeira are definitely giving their share in the complexity. We have like a full spectrum. It's yeah, Italian herbs, it's herb de Provence, it's not just Oregon, or it's extremely complex, but all that giving freshness to the balance of the wine, which is a powerful wine. We only look at 13 annual alpha alcohol. I say only, which is in modern days very, very, very decent, but wow, the balance and the freshness of the wine, I wouldn't struggle to put terroir on it, but I know Malgas have this ability to create freshness and ripeness at the same time. And that's one of the markers of this wine, because the fruit is very ripe, all of them. And the herby side comes from the normal herby characteristic of the cultivar, like Mourvedre, but there's freshness on the finish.
So actually that's a really interesting point you've made there. It's made me think of it, because we usually have warm and warming influences and cool and cooling influences, and then we get almost the change in fruit character when you go from warm to cool, because you want to retain acidity. But in Malgas, what Sijnn has that gives them particularly an edge or a uniqueness is that they can get the warm fruit, the really ripe fruit, without having to have the cooling influence. So what I'm trying to say is that they're so lucky, I think, with their terroir, that they're able to retain freshness without having that ultra cool wind blowing through the vineyards, or the ultra high elevation.
Clearly the wine hasn't been harvested before maturity. It's the grapes have been picked at perfect maturity. The fruits are not overripe, they're just intense. So Sijnn Red 2018 Malgas wine of origin, Syrah, Trincadera, Cabernet Sauvignon, Mourvedre, and Touriga Nacional. Potpourri, extremely elegant and enjoyable, but so powerful. Thanks, Cathy.